Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffery Combs, President and Founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. 2 for Tuesday. This is one of the two. Welcome to Facebook Live, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the afternoon. On the year of our Lord, 2020, on the first day of December. Welcome, everyone, to Facebook Live. Scott Lucas, how are you this afternoon? Welcome, and I'm looking forward to a great call this afternoon on selling mastery, sales mastery. So if you're just coming on here, Scott, good afternoon. Aaron Knight, welcome to Facebook Live this afternoon. Just getting all dialed in here. Tracy Wilford, welcome to Facebook Live. Good to connect with you, Tracy. J.A. Johns, great coaching you this morning. Many of you who are on, so those of you who are on, I know that everyone that I've seen so far is my coaching client. Remember, this is in your back office. Those of you who have hired me to be your coach, this download is in your back office, and that is my signature selling product. Jesse Moran-Thompson, welcome this afternoon. Cassie, congratulations on your successes. Who else do we have here? We have David Rapon Lassou. Carmen Sandoval, welcome to Facebook Live. Good to connect with you. Cynthia Wilson-Nixon, how are you this afternoon? Welcome. This is one of 2 for Tuesday. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to also welcome Jay Johns. Jay is my coaching client, and for those of you who have not met Jay, he is an exceptional man, and Jay has been I've been Jay's coach all this year. Jay has started to follow me more on Facebook Lives here frequently. So say hello to Jay. Kevin Mayberry, welcome to Facebook Live. Amy Gilberg, longtime client. Amy is in Las Vegas today. Ron Ziegler, how are you from Pembroke Pines, Florida? Jennifer Spar, thank you for referring me a coaching lead. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Thank you, Jennifer. You are first class. Jennifer, I want to acknowledge Jennifer. Jennifer did follow through as she did watch the movie The Prince of Tides. So thank you. I'm just reaching out here for my black pen, just making a quick note. I'm going to move into the inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live. I had the privilege of being on Abby O'Neill's Facebook team call last night. This Saturday, I'll be on LinkedIn with Ryan McMullen. Ryan is a coach out of Alaska. So if you want to friend Ryan, I'll be doing a LinkedIn Live with Ryan this Saturday at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 Eastern. Ryan is frequently on the call. That is Ryan, and then Mick, M-C-M-U-L-L-E-N. He is the brother-in-law of Wilford Fernandez. Wilford Fernandez is a real estate broker who was my client for 3 years in Wasilla, Alaska. Wilford is a multiple six-figure income earner as an independent real estate broker in Wasilla, Alaska, and Ryan is his brother-in-law. So then next Monday, and I'll find out if I can invite you to this, I'm going to be doing Mark Victor Hansen, who has been a longtime friend of mine. Mark used to speak for me at the More Heart Than Talent Mindset conferences in Dallas, Texas, and other events. Mark has spoken for me over 10 times. I'm going to be his guest next Monday at 1 o'clock. Mark is the co-author of the series Chicken Soup for the Everything. That is the top-selling book other than Danielle Steele. So I'll be Mr. Mark Victor Hansen's guest next Monday. And I will find out if I can invite all of you. If I can, Mark will be interviewing me. Mark has interviewed some of the most successful men and women in the history of free enterprise, personal development, self-improvement, real estate, spirituality, metaphysics, and many, many other modalities. Mark has won, he won the Horatio Algier Award several years ago and has been recognized for many, many accomplishments. And Mark also was mentored by the great Buckminster Fuller. If you want to look that up, if you want to Google who that was, Buckminster Fuller was the pioneer of the geodesic dome homes in Nevada. It was Buckminster, that's his first name, Buckminster Fuller, F-U-L-L-E-R. Mark mentored with him in his early 20s. I'm going to move into the inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live as the as the live is now filling up. So today's topic is selling mastery. Sales is the highest paid profession in the world. It is a vocation that I chose early in my career, and I found that I had an aptitude for it. There is no such, there is the title, but many people will say natural born. He or she is a natural born salesperson. Well, I don't actually agree with that term. There are people who have a sales aptitude. That's like saying he is a natural born hitter or a natural born baseball player. There are people who have affinity for certain vocations, certain trades, certain skills. But if you become skilled at selling, you will be able to be in free enterprise for the rest of your life. You may not be able to build a culture, but you'll be able to sell products, benefits, features, and services. So my assistant, Dylan Albertson, put together the Black Friday special that some of you purchased. He did all of that on his own. I didn't have any input on him putting that together. He did that completely on his own. Now, he did have a model. He looked at the model that one of my previous assistants, Chris Shar, had built over the years, and he had a sales funnel to start with. He didn't build it from complete scratch, but he did write the content, and he created multiple four figures on that campaign over a few day period. So he also has an aptitude. He's also mentored with me for over a year and a half. So he's had the privilege to watch what I do. Now, selling is an absolute skill set. And it is a lot like athletics in certain aspects, meaning that there's a hand-eye coordination, even though it's not physical. So you're not actually hitting a ball. You're not breaking down an opponent like you would in a sport, but your opponent is going to be your prospect. Whenever you're selling, now your opponent is not your enemy. Your prospect is not your enemy, but your prospect is your opponent because they have the money that they're holding on to. It's either credit or money, or it's some form of commerce, and they hold that while you hold this. And it's your responsibility to bring the two together, where your product, your service, your benefit, and your feature is right here, and then their ability to release their money, their credit, their whatever it is they're using as a means to compensate or purchase the product, service, and feature. And you will encounter many people who object to that purchase. They object. They give you a reason why they can't buy that day. They will say that they don't have the money. They want to think about it. They will tell you that they want to speak to someone else, their mother, their father, their brother, their accountant, their attorney, someone else that they want third-party validation. They will tell you they want to do their research. They will tell you they will get back to you. They will tell you they promise you. That is a very good objection. That's actually an added word. It's added two words, I promise. I promise I'll get back to you. Be aware of the people that promise. It's like what they're actually saying is I don't promise. It's a contradictory term that they're attempting to convince themselves. Now, selling is not a difficult skill to master, although it is new and uncomfortable for a large percent of society, because when I write the word sales on a board, S-A-L-E-S, what it means to the unconscious consciousness to many people is pain, a perceived pain that is not real. And so selling to many people represents rejection, abandonment, disappointment, not good enough, and gaslight, ghosted, other situations that means that I didn't perform well or they didn't like me. So somewhere between I didn't perform well and they didn't like me, the analytical egoic mind takes on a situation and personalizes it and makes it about yourself. Now, in the selling process, it's very important that you begin to separate your feelings from the potential rejection that isn't real. So you want to be able to take rejection out of the equation. Seldom, if ever, does anyone personalize it to you about selling. Now, there may be people from your past associations, your family and friends, who may say something derogatory to you, but that's the minority. Overall, most of the people don't buy for two reasons. They don't buy, number one, because you're not effective, and number two, because they can't commit. And as you start to understand those two situations, you can learn to be a professional at the vocation. Now, the skills to selling, sales mastery, is going to be repetition and experience. So I'm going to dispel the rumor that it's a numbers game. Okay, so the law of large numbers. I am the type of person that in my past I have purchased 500 leads, and I can systematically go through these 10-cent leads and smile and dial. I can call all of them in a relatively short period of time, and a skilled prospector can create connections in a 10-cent lead just like they can with a $10 lead or a $100 lead. When I do a sales funnel online and I invest $10,000 in someone building a sales funnel for me to create coaching leads, that coaching lead is somewhere between $100 and a $300 lead. So the average of that's a $200 lead. So I don't treat the $200 lead any different than I would a 10-cent lead because it's the same situation to me. I'm looking for a qualified buyer. And not all $200 leads are qualified buyers, even though they filled out a survey. So that means you do your due diligence whenever you are in the process of selling. So you may be selling homes, you may be selling insurance, you may be selling intellectual property, you may be selling wealth and financial products, Bitcoin, gold, wellness products, travel products, whatever it is you're selling. What you want to understand is the opponent. It's not the product, services, benefits, and features that you focus on, the product knowledge, although that is important, but is not nearly as important as knowing who your opponent is. Your opponent is someone on the other side of a telephone, the other side of a desk, the other side of a counter, the other side of the world, the other side of a car, wherever it is. Your opponent is the person you're communicating with. And your objective is to be able to create some warmth between that person and you so you can break down some of the other person's inhibitions, anxieties, fears, and doubts about the value, service, benefit of your product. Now, if you're anxious about that process and they're anxious, then you have two mixed messages colliding together. But if you're as cool as the other side of the pillow, if you have ice in your veins, if you're not consumed and detached from the process, you've now eliminated half of the problem. But if you're half of the problem, then you're going to have challenges. When you're not the problem, you're the solution. So this is a big distinction. When you're overwhelmed, when you're not comfortable with yourself, and you telegraph that, that's an emanation. So your prospect, your opponent, picks up on your emanations. And if you have anxiety based on unresolved events, so if you were molested, traumatized, sexually abused, you grew up in an alcoholic home where there was violence, you were told, sit there and do not say a word. If you are told children are to be seen, not heard. If your voice was robbed from you by a passive-aggressive parent, brother, sister, traumatizer, perpetrator, violator, you're going to be in fight or flight. So it means you're not accessing your full diaphragm. You're not even reaching it. You're up here in fight or flight. So when I coach my clients, I assist them to finish their sentences. Now, there's two situations that happen when people aren't effective in communication. They either talk too much or they have gaps and delays in their communication, and they're starting and stopping, thinking about what to say. Now, and all of this can be overcome. If you want me to be your coach, I'm very skilled at it. If you don't hire me to be your coach, you can do it on your own. But here's what you master. You master being able to articulate your feelings into words without anxiety about an outcome that hasn't happened. And you also start to monitor your word choices. If your word choices are not commitment focused, then if you're commitment phobic, now you're either commitment focused or commitment phobic. So commitment phobic's back here, commitment consciousness is right here. It means your communication style, you have follow through. But if you're a starter and not a finisher, it will show up in your word choices. If you did not watch my Facebook Live last night on overwhelm, I had several people send me personal messages about that. But if you did not watch my content last night on overwhelm, go back and review the content I did last night in the 9 o'clock Facebook Live. I covered what happens when you're overwhelmed. And if you're an overwhelmed person, it'll show up in your communication style because there's a lot of starting and stopping, a lot of pausing, guess, kinda, sorta, I don't know. That's the communication style that's delivered in that type of overwhelmed communication. As you become less overwhelmed, as you begin to let go of the events that shape the feelings, as you're no longer the mind-body connection to the events, as you're not as conscious of making mistakes. Now here's a term. If I was doing a live event, I would write this on a whiteboard. Those of you who have seen me speak live have seen me with my mastery on the whiteboard. So I would write the word with this is a Sharpie, but I would use a highlighter. The highlighter would say commitment phobic. And so that's what happens. And then I'd write underneath it overwhelmed. And then I write in that challenges finishing sentences. And that's what most of society is. They are commitment phobic. So meaning they start and they don't finish. Now, to be a closer in selling, it means you're a finisher. It means that you're able to go through a conversation with someone and you either let them go and you're finished with the conversation, or you're able to close the transaction. And there's this whole misnomer of the fortune is in the follow-up. Now, I don't care what industry you're in, you're going to hear that the fortune is in the follow-up. Now, that is not what I agree with. I believe that the fortune comes from the connection, and the fortune comes from you being relaxed in your body, being able to have quality conversations, which is a repetition and experience. So someone may not buy from you, but that's still a quality conversation. I had a quality conversation with someone today. They didn't buy from me. They're going to get back to me. They're going to research their money. And the way the woman communicated with, I feel that she will follow through. And she gave me a relatively short time frame that she would get back to me. And she did not use I promise. I promise is the kiss of death. That's the KOD. When someone says I promise, I don't know what it is about that, but about 99% of the time, the person who promises is saying, I don't promise to get back to you. That's what it means. So that's like their own validation that they have to add. That's like someone says, to be honest with you. Have you ever noticed people go, to be honest with you, to be honest with you? Does that mean you're lying? Are you edifying that you're honest? Why are you telling me you're honest? I mean, that type of edification oftentimes creates its own doubt because they keep edifying like they don't even believe it. So the more you understand this, people are predictable. And the more you understand how predictable human beings are, especially when you're presenting products, services, benefits, and features, ideas, ideology, whatever it is you're selling, the more you understand how predictable people are and how when it comes to a decision, how people use the same set of circumstances, words, jargon, dialogue, diatribes, communication to avoid committing. The more you understand this. And when you're a sales professional, your objective is not to convince someone. If you convince someone to buy, oftentimes you have to convince them to keep it. And the more you let go of that, and if you're desperate and you backdoor someone into the business or you backdoor them into purchasing a product, it's very common for that person to have buyer's remorse because they feel you oversold them. Now, I've been desperate. I've been destitute. I've been financially strapped. I've been broke. I've sold CDs. I sold my Mickey Mantle autograph that I got personally when I was 5 years old. Just like in the Garth Brooks song, Rodeo, he'll sell off everything he owns just to pay to play the game. I've done that. I've sold off everything I've owned to stay in business before and started over. And I've done my best not to be desperate. I have had moments of desperation where I've begged someone to please buy from me, please, please. Now, I wasn't saying it to him, it was how I was conveying it. I mean, I was destitute. I was $100,000 in credit card debt, relegated to buying 10-cent leads. I was buying 500 leads at a time for $50 back in 1995 and 6, early in the lead generation industry. Leads weren't prevalent at all until the mid-90s as lead vendors became a lot more prevalent. There actually was a lead generation network marketing company called ProStep that I was one of the top income earners in as a sideline business. With Todd Falcone, who was one of the number one income earners. So Todd and I were in that same business together back in 1995, 6, 7, and 8. So if you've ever seen Todd, Todd is a master prospector. I also gave Todd his very first speaking opportunity in 2000 in San Francisco, California. So Todd is like me. He's a master closer. He teaches sales skills. Selling is the highest paid profession in the world, and it's not a difficult profession. The difficulty is overcoming your own ego. Your ego is your lower self that talks you into feeling rejected before it happens. And this is why so many people go, I'm not sure if I can put myself out there. I don't feel comfortable about this. What are they going to say? What are they going to be? Well, that's not really relevant. What's relevant is that you let go and that you learn how to qualify people for your time. And you learn how to ask the questions in a sequence. And you learn how to easily and effortlessly let people go who aren't interested. And you don't personalize the situation by making it about you. If you make it about you, now it's personal. If you're able to detach and let people go, then you don't require much follow-up. The reason you won't require much follow-up is you become better because you will hear what people mean. And people aren't going to buy because you follow up with them. They're going to buy because they saw the value. The right person that says they'll get back to you actually will get back to you. And occasionally you can jog someone's memory by following up with them. Now, I don't make this as a blanket statement, but I will follow up with people who merit the follow-up. If someone tells me they're going to get back to me on Monday, and that was Saturday, and they don't get back to me, I will send them a message. And the message would say, Tom, you and I spoke on Saturday regarding the purchase of a product. Tom, you and I spoke on Saturday. I'm following up with you per our conversation. You would let me know you'd reach out to me on Monday. It is now Tuesday. I'm following up to see if you're still committed to purchasing the product. I will follow up one time, but I won't put them on a drip list. I won't keep hounding them. I won't follow up with them. I won't stalk them. I won't beg them. I won't convince them, because if they're not getting back to me, they're not interested. I mean, in a gray world, this becomes black and white. And if that person's not getting back to me, they're not rejecting me, they're not ghosting me, they don't dislike me, they're just not buying. It's that simple. They've had a change of heart, a change of mind. Something happened to them. I don't have to know all the details of what happened. I don't require closure. If you have control issues and you want closure on everything, I want closure. I've seen people do this. Like someone goes, like in dating, I see people, they want closure. Like the person quits calling you. Well, that should be a clue, Chief. They don't want to date you anymore. But if you keep following, I want closure. What did I do wrong? What possibly happened? I mean, let it go. I mean, this is, you let it go. Liz Hernandez, this is golden. For those of you who are not sales professionals and you haven't had a 20-minute call with me, reach out. I'll give you some great sales tips. I am a closer. In my career, I have created multiple millions by learning how to close. Now, here's where I learned how to close. I found out that I had closing skills when I was 19 years old. I was 19 years old. I was smoking weed 7 days a week. I lived in Denver, Colorado for a summer between college. I answered an ad in the Rocky Mountain News, and I went down to 6th and Washington Street. This was a trip, but there were some Hare Krishnas across the street. They were drinking strawberry wine. I went over there and hung out with them for a couple hours, and I had a job interview. I went into a job interview. I must admit I was high and a little tipsy. I got hired to work in the phone room for Time Life Books. I went in there at 6 o'clock in the morning. I had a 6 to 2 shift. I found out real quickly I had sales skills, and I was good on the telephone. I had an old-style headphone that had the arm that came out there, and I found out I was good. And that summer, I actually advanced into the advanced phone room. I went back to college, changed my major from psychology to radio and television, and I focused on selling radio and television ads. That whole summer absolutely changed my life because I found out I had sales skills. Then throughout my college career, I had businesses that I sold. I had my own business in my 20s. I became a six-figure income earner in my multiple 20s, having my own business. I was selling late night tickets to concerts I was hosting, after hours in bars, making $10,000 a weekend on this. And I found out, wow, I'm good at this. I'm good at selling and promotion. Now, I derailed myself by being a drug addict and an alcoholic through my entire 20s. When I got clean and sober, I already had a sales position with Southwestern Bell. I was a territory sales rep on the West Coast for Southwestern Bell, traveling the West Coast, and I was my numbers were absolutely in the toilet in my last 6 months of being an addict. When I got clean and sober, I became a freaking rock star, because for the first time in my entire life, from 18 to 31, I was an addict. So when I was 18 years old, I was a really good athlete, and I felt like I had that clarity back. And I went out and I was crushing it. I started having record months with my company, and they were like, oh my God, where's this guy been hiding? Well, I'd been hiding under the bridge. I was a drug addict, alcoholic, and I got clean and sober, and I'm like, oh my God, I can do this. I joined Herbalife in 1990. I had my first $8,000 month in Herbalife in my first year. I had an $18,000 month my second year. I mean, that was network marketing and direct sales, and it was selling to me. It wasn't like anything I wasn't worried about it was MLM or it was a pyramid. And no one ever asked me those questions. No one ever said, is this a pyramid? Is this MLM? No one ever asked me that because my conversation was so fluid that no one ever interrupted me. I was just able to it was good. And then I started doing whiteboard presentations in Pleasanton, California, in my own office. And I was doing 2 presentations a day. I was running ads in the San Francisco Chronicle, Contra Costa Times, Oakland Tribune, Modesto Bee, Stockton Record. I had about a $4,000 a month advertising bill, and I was creating like hundreds of leads. And I'm going, oh, you're not open? Goodbye. Next lead. And I was smiling and dialing all day, and I was booking 15 appointments a day, closing people at $3,000 in Herbalife in 1991, 1992, and 3. And it was cool. I started opening offices in Dallas, Texas, Washington, D.C., and my career was launched. But it wasn't smooth. I mean, I went through a lot of ups and downs. But through it all, I learned how to sell. I set my AIC, that's where I invented that term, AIC. My ass was in the chair most of the day, and when I wasn't, I was doing presentations. I became very skilled at it because I did thousands and thousands of phone calls and hundreds of presentations. So when you see me on the whiteboard today, when I'm at a live event, I was doing that in 1991 and 1990. So that's where I developed all of that repetition and experience. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do the same thing I do, but what you learn to do is sales mastery. And you learn how to ask the questions in the sequence. You learn how to qualify the buyer for your time. You learn how to ask for the commitment, and then you let people go who aren't qualified buyers, and you follow up with the people who require a follow-up. My name is Jeffery Combs. I am the president and founder of Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. If you've not received a free 20-minute coaching call with me, go right up in there to Messenger, request one, and I will get back to you in the next 24 hours. In the last 2 days, I created a few leads, and I have a half-hour break, and what I'm going to do in that break is call someone who requested 20 minutes of my time. You have a great afternoon on the very first day of December 2020. If you look at your watch, that will be tonight at midnight Eastern Standard Time. That will be 9 o'clock Pacific. Today is 2/4 Tuesday, so I will be back here 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Facebook Live, you have a great afternoon.